Hey, how you doing? This is Bob Gums, and I'm bringing you the Concern Forum. Uh, let's talk. And before I go any further, I would appreciate, you folks take a look at the my channel. If you like what I have to say, give me a little check. And it would be even great if you decided to subscribe, because that would tell me that folks out there are paying attention to what's going on in the world. Okay, let's talk about what's happening with the Epstein files. Okay, and why that's such a big deal. Now, in my humble opinion, I believe that the Epstein, one of the main things that it signifies is the death of empathy. Now, what is empathy? Well, I'm not going to get all philosophical, okay? But I will say that empathy is basically the idea that when you see somebody else being crushed, you say to yourself, oh, okay, well, hey, that could be me, right? I mean, to put it in layman common terms or in common layman terms, that's what the whole concept of empathy is all about. I mean, this is what I believe most of the major religions in the world talk about when they talk about, oh, do unto others, so on and so forth. So that's what empathy is about. Now, you ask yourself, what is so important with the Epstein files, and how does that link us to the things that we're dealing with now here in America as a nation? Well, listen. You have to remember that these people, these very powerful political, economic, big people, as they say, uh, they're the ones that have basically kept us at war, for example, in the Middle East the last 20 some odd years, you see. You see, that's the thing that I think that people are not picking up, right? That's what this whole Epstein thing is about. Because see, if what is the Epstein thing? Okay, you have a bunch of rich, powerful, influential politicians, bankers, heads of corporations, so on and so forth, basically raping girls below the age of 17, some cases as young as 9 or 10. And what does that say? That says that the people who hold the major power in the world, at least in the so-called Western world, they really don't give a good damn about the average person. Seriously, they don't think that it's not an anathema to rape children. So if these people feel that way towards 9 and 10 little girls, Uh, why do you think they would feel any different when it comes to putting your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband into a situation where they have to go into some other country and kill people or be killed? And see, as a military, as a veteran of both the Army and Navy, that's one of the things that really kind of got under my skin. Now, you look at also the questions here in the in the United States, when we talk about homelessness and health care. Why would these people give a damn? Okay? They're raping babies, they're raping children. Why the hell do you think that they would use their influence to try and make the quality of life for working Americans a little better? See, this is what is missing. I mean, believe me, I appreciate what's that Republican congressman, what's his name, Massey. The other one is Ron Kona, the Indian American gentleman. I mean, they're beautiful people. Okay, I appreciate what they're doing. Okay, because they have been the leaders on this thing. But hey, I think that this is something that the mainstream media, I don't know because I grew up with Walter Cronkite. Okay, I don't understand why the mainstream media has refused. I mean, for the most part, why they have refused to pick up on this, right? But to me, if you're willing to rape 10, 11-year-olds, uh, that kind of person, why would you care about homelessness in the United States? Why would you care about millions of Americans not having health care? And especially, why would you care about millions upon millions of Americans not being educated? Seriously, you see how it all kind of fits in. If you have a position of responsibility and you don't care about people, if you don't care about your fellow man or woman, then yeah, it's easy basically to just fulfill your because we all have a how should I put it? Going back to the movies, right? What was Star Wars about? It was about the dark side, okay? And the idea of an evolving human being is the fact that you are able to balance your goodness, all right, with the dark side. I thought that's what like religion, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. I thought Buddhism, what have you. I thought that's what it's supposed to be about. But we see with the Epstein files that these very powerful in their fields and very prominent people, uh, I don't know, they felt that with getting with this guy Epstein, that they can unleash the dark side. Okay? So you have to figure if they can do this with children, right? I mean, I call me old fashioned as a grown man. I, I don't see why a grown man would want to get it on with a 14, 15-year old. I'm sorry, that's just me. Call me old fashioned, right? But obviously, that is what's happened. And if you have that kind of mentality, if you don't feel that there is some type, I don't know how to put it, uh, some type of, how should I say, as the Catholic Church used to say, infamia. If you don't feel that there's something seriously wrong internally with you, okay, when you attack children for sex, then why do you think it's okay? No, why do you think it's okay to send young men and women, husbands and fathers and children to stupid wars? Because it's obviously that you don't give a good goddamn about humanity itself, the humanity of other people, right? You have no sense of empathy. And if you're going to be a leader in politics, government, academia, excuse me, academic, I think I said it right, academic, and institutions that deal with learning, okay, finance, corporations, if you don't have a sense of empathy, you're dangerous, right? You are dangerous to the average, working people, okay? And I think that this is the thing that a lot of people are missing about this whole Epstein thing. All right. I mean, we wonder why, like, especially in America, right? We wonder, damn, man, why? We've been at war for like 25, 20 some odd years. We have all these broken, not talking about the dead guys and gals, but just the broken young people who have come back to this country, all right, after being in these stupid ass wars, right? And then we don't want to provide for them. And we wonder, well, why as a nation, why as a United States, why are we doing this? Right? How do we let this happen? And I see now why it's easy to see why we let this happen. It's easy to see why we have it's supposedly the land of plenty while we're dealing with homelessness, while we're dealing with a situation where we don't have health care for our people, where we don't have education. The education that Americans get and have been getting for the last what, 4 or 5 decades is crap. Okay? And why is it? And we have Americans now standing on food lines, nice little heartland American communities. People have to stand on food lines. And when you see, and at the meantime, you look at people like, what's his name? Elon Musk, getting billions of American tax money, right? It's related. Yeah, folks, it's related because it's the mentality. It's the mentality of people that have essentially said there is no such thing as empathy. It's about power. It's about my bestial need for power and what I want and what I wanted, and damn everybody else. And that's the reason why America is in the situation that it's in. Okay, this whole Epstein thing, it goes up, it goes a hell of a lot deeper than what they're talking about on the news. Now, we find that this guy Epstein, and as I say, I'm a veteran. I spent a good deal of time in the intelligence community, and to me, the way that everything has been, has over the last decade, 2 decades, has come across, excuse me, 3 decades, I think now, right? Obviously, this guy was hooked up with he had some kind of intel connection. Okay, now I know a lot of people say it was with the Israelis. Okay, that's something I think me myself personally, I would love to do some more research on. But yeah, obviously this man was hooked up with intel. He was hooked up with something, otherwise he would not have been able to get away with the crap that he got away with all this time. See, and we have to ask ourselves, how far does this whole thing extend? You got to remember something. The guy that we have sitting in the White House now, okay, this guy was busted with boxes of, like top secret classified material in his freaking bathroom, right? In his mansion in Florida. And we know that he shared that kind of information with people who came to visit him in Mar-a-Lago when he went to talk to the head of Russia, was named Putin. And now we find that this guy, this president that we had, he was joined at the hip with this guy, Epstein. And then we find that Epstein, apparently, from what's been disclosed, that this guy, put it this way, he was at the very least on speaking terms with Putin and his people. So, and then it bounces back to the Israeli, the Mossad, right? The Israeli government. And listen, I worked Intel. I don't claim to be an expert, but something here ain't right. Seriously. And what bothers me about here in America, now in Europe, people are, they're being woken up, you're asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a bang at the door, hey, Prince Andrew, or should we say former Prince Andrew, yo, man, come into Parliament, man. We got some questions you want to ask you about what type of information that you shared with this guy Epstein. And what does he know? We find that a former Norwegian of Norway, a Norwegian prime minister, is being hauled into the public light there, and is going to have to answer questions, right? I mean, what the hell? What the hell happened? It's right. Some sheik from Saudi Arabia who was some kind of super duper corporation. I believe it's some type of arms intel. Um, but what is it when you get into secrecy and all this other good stuff, right? He's being pulled. Well, what the hell was his name? Sheik somebody was. I didn't bother writing it down. And then lo and behold, we find the man that always sleeps in his clothes, or at least he looks like it, Steve Bannon. Now, let's think about this for a second. Steve Bannon wants Donald Trump to use ICE, and we know who ICE is. Those are the guys that run around in masks, beating up on black and brown people and American citizens, and they want to build concentration camps here in the United States. This is, totally okay with Bannon, and he also wants these same Nazi like thugs to stand around elections, around polling places, right? Now, we find out that this guy Bannon was on very, very chummy terms with Mr. Epstein. And this was after it was known that Epstein was, what do they call him in prison? Uh, a child diddler or whatever, right? So, you have to really ask yourself, when you put Donald Trump in the White House for the second time, did you, I mean, I'm talking to you folks out there, you red hat wearing folks, right? And did you really stop and think what it was that you were doing? And I really don't understand where the hell was the media? Okay. Um, I mean, good God, you got a media, the American media, if they want to find out what you did in the cloakroom when you were 12 years old with, Sally Mae, they can find it out. But what I don't understand is something this serious, right? This important, not only to the United States, but to the whole Western alliance. But for some reason, it seems like a lot of this stuff was not covered. You know, what does Steve Bannon have to do with Epstein? What does the ear? Because you can remember something for the longest, Steve Bannon was like the ear of Donald Trump. Why? was the ear of Donald Trump so attached to a guy that was a sexual trafficker. I don't understand that. Why wasn't right? This guy was the prime minister of Israel, and he was also the big one of the big wonkers in Mossad. And how often was this guy at Epstein's crib? What, over 30 times? Used to hang out there and everything. What the freak is going on? I think that as a nation, you know what I think? Tell you the truth, in my opinion, you know, in my percent opinion, I tell you, one of the things that to me this indicates, because you talk about we got a red state of America and we got a blue state of America, and within these states, you have red districts in blue states and blue districts in red states, right? And then you got the left and they got the right. We got these jerks in the middle. And, I tell you quite frankly, I think it's bullshit. I believe that as an American, I believe that we have been made chumps out of, okay? Or as, we say back in the hood, we've been played. We really have. Because we have been basically led to this thing, this path where we're busy pointing fingers at each other instead of the people that we truly need to point fingers at. I have no use for QAnon, right? I don't have any use for them red hat wearing conspiracy freaks. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm an honest man. I've always tried to be an honest man, and I will tell you that it's starting to look more and more like everything that these people were saying ain't crazy. I'm sorry. Did you see the performance of what's her name, Little Miss Bondi, our so-called Attorney General? The performance that she put on. Who the hell does she think she is? But yet she was up there basically yelling and screaming, saying, you ask her a question, hey, Bonnie, what time is it? Well, don't you realize that the Dow was up a zillion points because of Donald Trump? And like everybody's saying, well, yo, baby, that's not what we asked you, man. We asked you what time it is. What does your watch say? And she's gonna break out talking about the Dow Jones. And it's like, my God, I can't believe that my country, the United States of America, I can't believe that this is America. I mean, my God, we've always had problems for 200 and some odd years. But what we have going on now is insane. And we have our president, our chief executive, is he a pedophile? I'm sorry. It's starting to look more and more like something is up with that. At the very least, our president, our chief executive, is trying to run interference for the world for the world's greatest pedophiles. And I'm like, what the hell? And then this is the same guy that says that he doesn't trust the election process. I mean, come on, man. I mean, listen, a sci-fi writer could not write. He could not write this shit. I'm serious. And I'm just wondering, when are people gonna wake the hell up? This is not politics, okay? And I grew up in a black Republican family. Okay, my old man was the vice president for the Republican Club in West Harlem. Okay, he ran in the assembly as a Republican. So I mean, I know the Republican Party, and this ain't got a damn thing to do with politics. It doesn't. I think it has more to do with a mindset. You know, you have, unfortunately, I was let me backtrack a bit. The problem with the Republican Party, most of them, I'm not going to say all of them, because you still do have real boring ass, real boring ass Republicans. Okay, which is a good thing because you need to have a balance. Unfortunately, we need to have three or four parties. Okay, so everybody, everybody with ideas has a right? But we have these two parties, and looking at the Republican parties, and I'm not trying to give a pass. I'm a registered Democrat, and I'm a progressive, and I love Mondami in New York. But I believe that what the Republican Party has allowed to happen to itself is that it got caught up in the whole anti-civil rights, anti-women's rights thing, and they've been going downhill ever since. Right? That's why Trump chose to. Because remember, Trump was a Democrat. In 2012, Trump was a Democrat. People seem to conveniently forget that. And because of their, what's the word that I'm looking for? Because of they had allowed themselves to be taken over by the reactionaries, the corporate types, that they they were wide open for somebody like Donald Trump. See, and that's the problem that we have now. And it would seem, with like I said, there are exceptions. But generally, the Republican Party has allowed itself to be taken over by people who have fascist tendencies, right? Very racist tendencies, and they want to take over and destroy America, the United States of America, as we know it. What they're trying to do, they're trying to destroy everything that was built since 1945, both domestically and internationally. And that's not to say that the United States has not made some, bad mistakes during that time period. But we at least, we had a structure, we had a formula about trying to go forward. And these people with Trump, they're trying to destroy that. And one thing we need to do, everybody's talking about, yeah, let's get Donald Trump, let's impeach him. Hey, listen, I think what's just as important, if not more important, we need to find out these supporters. Now, we know some of them, people like Elon, and what's the other guy? Peter Thiel, I think it is. Right. But there's quite a few in behind the throne, so to speak. And I think that that's something that we're going to have to deal with. A lot of people are talking about, oh, well, what will politics be in America after Trump? Well, listen, hey, man, let me let you in on something. And again, this is my piss poor opinion, but I think that it's going to take probably, uh, it might take a generation, seriously, to try and fix everything that Trump and his gang of thugs and the people who have been supporting them. It's going to take a generation to try and fix it. Because you have to realize something. You're going to have to deal. We have this enormous, tremendous deficit, number one. Number two, you have all these people, you have all those people in America that they believed in the Republican Party. They believed in Trump, and now they have nothing. And they're just, they're out there. What are you going to do about that? How's that going to be fixed? Right? Also, if you're talking in terms of international affairs, do you seriously think that the nations of the world are going to say, okay, oh, whoa, boom, it's 2028. Hey, you got Trump out of the White House, so let's go dance and party, right? No, man, that ain't going to happen. Seriously, it's not going to happen because it's going to be almost a generation before the rest of the world ever trusts the United States again. And hey, can you blame them? Seriously. The American people allowed themselves to be led down the path, right? Look, Trump is a guy, he should have never gotten in 2016, let alone 2024. How the hell are you going, how the hell are you going to expect people to trust your word, right? To trust your worldview after what Trump has done. My God, we're just about that far away from war with Canada. I mean, if you can't get along with Canada, you need to be in a freaking cage somewhere. Seriously. Right? I mean, he's trying to cause instability in Africa. And that's something else I want to get more into the next time I talk about this Epstein thing, because I understand that he was over there trying to work some voodoo in Africa, right? With with the Israeli government. And please, this is not about anti-Semitism. Okay, I fought anti-Semitism. Okay, my last duty station, believe me, I fought anti-Semitism. No, this is about the government, okay, and what they're doing, right? I mean, the fact that they have free healthcare, free education, a very wonderful quality of life. I've seen it. I've been there a few times. And, look at what's happening here in America. People are starving. They don't have health care. And we give them, what is it? I don't know, billions of dollars every year. But I'm not going to get too deep into that. But I do have big concerns about, eh, it kind of seems like Epstein was basically trying to provide a link between the bigwigs in our academic and government lives and the state of Israel. I don't, I mean, this is really deep, okay? And we're just getting bits and pieces right now. I mean, the American public. But people need to go in depth, okay? Just like we need to go in depth as to who or where Donald Trump gets his money from. Now, that's my opinion. But listen, this is the only one. This is the only subject I want to speak about this evening because I want folks to take time to think about it. Right? What does Steve Bannon and Epstein? What is their link? What is that? What is the common thing? Right? Why was Epstein seen in certain African countries or certain African governments? Who was this guy? I mean, I know in the Intel where they talk about somebody being a cutout or an asset. I mean, was he working for us, the United States, or was he working for, I don't know, other folks? I know that the guy, what's his name, Prime Minister there in Britain, he might wind up losing his job because he appointed a guy to be ambassador to the United States that was like deep in the Epstein's pocket. So what the hell is this? I guess that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm attempting to say here. What the hell was going on? What do we know, and how come we don't know more? And I think that that is the question that needs to be answered. Because I tell you something, and I say this as a veteran. I say this as somebody that has lost comrades in the service of this country. Before you start, and I would say this to Donald Trump, who seemed, it looks more and more likely that the reason that we went into Venezuela was because he had certain friends that wanted to get that Venezuelan oil. Again, what the hell is going on? We've slaughtered fishermen. And as far as I'm concerned, those people that we slaughtered off the coast of Venezuela, they were fishermen until you can show me the goods. And let me digress for just a brief moment. I'm from Harlem. I'm New York City. Okay. In New York City, when we have a situation where there's like a big drug bust, right? There's a warehouse full of cocaine. Boom. You know what happens? And I've said this before. There's a big table, right? And it's usually like a big ass table. And if it's in a big like warehouse or something, you'll see more of the drugs. All that stuff is laid out, right? And then you'll see the weapons that were confiscated. You'll see the money, right? And then you'll have NYPD, you'll have DEA, you'll probably have FBI, right? And one or two other federal agencies. If it's big enough, you'll have the freaking mayor, right? Because everyone wants to get them photo ops. And they'll say, oh, hey, look here. No, look at all the dope. Look at all the weapons. Look at all the money, right? And you got something. You have something that you can sink your teeth in, right? I don't understand why this whole thing of Venezuela would have to be so different, where you just went and flew and bombed people in boats. Now, I spent some good time in the Navy, right? And I have yet to understand why between the Navy and the Coast Guard, and we know about international waters and all this good stuff, right? Listen, man, look, the United States Navy goes where it wants to go. Trust me, right? And if you felt that you had fishing boats or speed boats or whatever that you thought was doing something naughty, are you saying that between the United States Navy and the Coast Guard, that they couldn't handle that? They couldn't grab the folks and you know um, get the contraband, bring it back to Miami, and say, "Yeah, this is what we caught these bastards with." Right? I mean, that's what we used to do. Okay. No, what we're doing now, we just blast people in the atoms. And just something else that really kind of trips my trigger here. Listen, even if I would agree for one moment that they were justifiably killing drug runners, doesn't it make more sense that you would at least try to apprehend these people and work your way up the food chain? I mean, the whole thing smells rotten as hell. And I tell you, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Epstein was somehow involved. Even from the grave. if somehow his own contacts or something was not involved in that. See? But this is where we are now as a country. And I think that people who are in the right positions really need to start asking questions. I think that what is left of our media needs to start asking questions. Just like with this whole Epstein thing, right? Who were these people? We got a guy sitting in the cabinet right now. Was it Secretary of Commerce? What's his name? Howie Lutzig or whatever? He lied. Yeah, I don't understand how the hell you're going to be a cat. I've never seen anything like this. I've been watching this bullshit called politics since uh, Jack Kennedy, and I have never seen a cabinet official sit up there, smile on his face, and tell a bald ass face lie, and nothing happens. I don't get this, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm too damn dense, but how the hell are you going to sit in front of what was in front of the Congress, the Senate, what have you, and just lie, right? I mean, I know that most Americans don't that they don't feel all that overjoyed or trusting in the credibility of people in government and politics. All right. But there's certain lines that we agree we shouldn't cross. And you standing up there, you sitting up there and just lying to folks, right? But that's bad. So, oh no, well, I went there and my wife said this was a very, terrible person and we never went. And it was a freaking lie. And then you find that yeah, well, yeah, I brought the kids and the nannies to the island. What's this? My God, man, what have you done with my country? Right? It is like, okay, I'm a native New Yorker, as I've said, right? Um, at the time I grew up, I think we had in my crew, I think we had one person that had access to a car, right? And that was his mom's car. She was a social worker, okay? Because in New York, it's not as he's something else to think about. Not to again digress, but when you talk about trying to have IDs and shit like that, you gotta be careful, right? I didn't touch a car. I didn't touch any vehicle. The only reason I did, I was what, 70, no, turning 18. And when I first went in the military and I was at Fort Knox and I learned how to drive a tank. I drove a tank before I drove an automobile. Okay. And that's not a big deal for a New Yorker, right? Because you got millions in New York. We don't have driver's licenses. We got maybe a state ID, hey, but we don't have driver's license because a lot of us did not, we grew up there. We didn't. You had the subways, you had the buses, you had the taxis, right? Taxi, right? And the Puerto Rican whistle, I could never do that. Damn, I always wanted to do it. That's one thing I couldn't do. You know. So we didn't have this whole thing about having a driver's license and all this BS, right? And then after my first tour in the military, and then I went to college, and then I went down to my mother's home in Virginia, and that's when I got in the cars. And I think I was like about what, 21, 22. Yeah, because I was a veteran when I was 19. So, you know, but the whole thing about Donald Trump sitting up there saying, yeah, we don't trust the voting mechanism in the states. Hey, man, we can't trust you. You're sitting up there protecting pedophiles, number one. It seems like everybody in your cabinet was involved with Epstein, right? a magician of pedophilia, and I'm like, yo, what the hell is going on here? And it's like, I won't say New York. I'll say like when I was in the, couple of years I spent in Virginia as a civilian before I went back in the military. It's like I got a car, right? And I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. And I got a buddy say, hey man, look, I got this hot date, I got this lady laying, lined up and what have you. Let me hold your car. And I said, okay, man, fine, here, take it. You know, 2 days later, he comes back, right, with the fender bent, right? The back window is busted. And I'm like, yo, dude, what did you do to my car, man? And that's the same way I feel about the United States. You had Joe Biden, and now the majority of you all are saying, hey man, Biden wasn't that bad. As a matter of fact, he was better than this clown we got now. And I'm like, yo, what did you do to my country, man? And that's exactly how I feel. But make a long story short, this Epstein thing, America, we're going to have to deal with it, right? Um, and we need to follow it no matter where it goes. Because it is, I tell you quite frankly, this is the biggest thing that we have to deal with. And I know that people also, people feel the same way. So listen, thank you. And this is Bob Gums with the Concerned Forum. I will check you later. In the meantime, pay attention, stay woke, take care of each other, and bless you all. And peace. It's just that simple.